Listen carefully. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they waste energy. They wake up tired. They stay busy all day. And they go to bed wondering why nothing changed. The top 1% live differently. Not because they work longer. Not because they're smarter. But because they understand one truth. Productivity is not about doing more. It's about doing less, better, faster, and on purpose. Asterisk asterisk. This audiobook will dismantle everything you've been taught about time, effort, and success. You will learn how high performers think, how they decide, how they eliminate distractions without guilt, and how they get more done in less time without burning out. If you're ready to stop being busy and start being effective, then listen closely, because this changes everything. Chapter 1. Busyness is the enemy. Stop confusing movement with progress. Busyness looks productive. It feels productive. It gives you the illusion that you're moving forward. But most of the time you're not. You're just moving, answering emails, checking messages, attending meetings, rearranging tasks, starting things you won't finish. You end the day exhausted and still behind. That's not discipline. That's distraction. Busy is easy. Results are rare. Say that again. Busy is easy. Results are rare. That's the difference between average people and the top 1%. The top 1% don't measure effort. They measure outcomes. You have a choice. You can spend your life being busy, or you can spend your life being effective. Most people choose busyness because it's comfortable. Busyness feels safe. Busyness gives you an excuse. I worked all day. I tried my best. I stayed busy. None of that matters if nothing moved forward. That's the key. Movement is not progress. Motion is not momentum. Activity is not achievement. If it doesn't move the needle, it's noise. And most of your day is noise. You wake up and react. You let other people's priorities decide your focus. You let notifications hijack your attention. You let urgency replace importance. You don't choose your day. Your day chooses you. And then you wonder why you're tired. You're tired because you're leaking energy into things that don't matter. You're tired because you keep mistaking motion for meaning. You're tired because you're busy being busy. The top 1% don't live like this. They don't confuse effort with effectiveness. They don't confuse long hours with real work. They don't confuse pressure with progress. They understand something most people never learn. Productivity is subtraction, not addition. It's not about doing more. It's about doing less, better. You don't need more tasks. You need fewer targets. You don't need to fill your calendar. You need to protect it. You don't need their permission to slow down and focus. You don't need anyone's approval to cut what doesn't matter. You have a choice. Right now. Look at your day. How much of it actually creates results? Not activity. Not movement. Results. Be honest. Most people avoid this question because it exposes the truth. The truth that they're busy but ineffective. The truth that they're exhausted but unfulfilled. Busy is easy. Results are rare. Being busy doesn't require courage. Being effective does. Because effectiveness forces you to confront what actually matters. And when you do that, excuses disappear. You can't hide behind busyness anymore. You can't hide behind effort. You can't hide behind trying. You either did the thing that mattered, or you didn't. That's uncomfortable. That's why most people stay busy. They fill their days with small tasks to avoid the one hard task. They clean. They plan. They prepare. They research. They do everything except execute. Execution is lonely. Execution is quiet. Execution doesn't feel productive at first. That's why it works. The work that actually moves your life forward usually feels boring. It feels repetitive. It feels uncomfortable. So people avoid it. They chase urgency instead. They chase stimulation. They chase feeling important. Emails feel important. Meetings feel important. Notifications feel important. But importance is a lie if it doesn't produce results. If it doesn't move the needle, it's noise. Say it again. If it doesn't move the needle, it's noise. The top 1% build their days around this principle. They identify the few actions that create disproportionate results. Then they remove everything else. Not later. They don't ask, "What should I do today?" They ask, "What must get done today for this day to count?" One thing. Maybe two. That's it. Everything else is optional. That's discipline. Discipline is not doing everything. Discipline is doing what matters, even when it's boring, even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one is watching. You don't need more motivation. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Discipline chooses depth over speed. Discipline chooses focus over frenzy. Discipline chooses results over recognition. Most people want to look productive. Few want to be effective. You have a choice. You can keep filling your day to avoid your potential. Or you can strip your day down to what actually matters. That's the work. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop measuring your worth by how busy you are. Stop saying yes to things that don't align with your goals. Stop confusing urgency with importance. Stop reacting to everything. Reaction is weakness. Response is power. Here's what you must start doing. Start your day with intention. Decide what outcome will make today a win. Protect time for deep, focused work. Eliminate distractions without guilt. You don't need their permission. You don't need to answer immediately. You don't need to attend everything. You don't need to explain your focus. The top 1% don't ask for permission to be disciplined. They decide. And they execute. That's the key. Busyness keeps you trapped at the surface. Effectiveness forces you to go deep. And depth is where results live. Depth is uncomfortable. Depth is quiet. Depth doesn't give you constant feedback. But depth compounds. 1 focused hour beats 10 distracted hours. 1 executed priority beats 20 half-finished tasks. 1 clear outcome beats a full checklist. Busy is easy. Results are rare. Say it until it hurts. Say it until it sticks. Your life will not change because you're busy. Your life will change because you're effective. Effectiveness demands clarity. Clarity demands honesty. Honesty demands discipline. Discipline is choosing what matters and ignoring the rest. That's how progress is made. That's how momentum is built. That's how the top 1% separate themselves from everyone else. They don't do more. They do what matters. And they do it consistently. You have a choice. Every morning, every hour, every task. Will this move the needle? Or is it noise? If it's noise, cut it. If it moves the needle, protect it. This is not about working harder. It's about working cleaner. Cleaner focus. Cleaner priorities. Cleaner execution. Busyness will keep you tired. Effectiveness will set you free. Lock this in. Movement is not progress. Effort is not achievement. Busyness is the enemy. You've learned to see the trap. You've learned to identify the noise. You've learned that productivity begins with elimination. Now you're ready for the next truth. Because once busyness is removed, something else becomes clear. Time is not your biggest limitation. Energy is. You've stopped confusing movement with progress. Now it's time to understand what actually fuels execution. Chapter 2. Decide once, execute daily. Eliminate decision fatigue. Every day, most people exhaust themselves before they do anything meaningful. Not physically. Mentally. They wake up already negotiating. What time should I start? What should I work on first? Should I go to the gym or skip today? Should I respond now or later? Should I stay disciplined or take it easy? Decision after decision after decision. By noon, their willpower is gone. By evening, discipline collapses. By night, regret shows up. This is not a motivation problem. This is not a time problem. It's a decision problem. The top 1% understand something brutal and simple. The more decisions you make, the weaker you become. That's the key. Most people think strong people have more willpower. They don't. They have fewer decisions. They don't decide all day. They decided once. And then they obey. Decide once. Obey daily. Say it again. Decide once. Obey daily. This is how real productivity works. Decision fatigue is invisible, but it's deadly. Every choice costs energy, even small ones, especially repeated ones. What to wear, what to eat, when to work, what to prioritize, whether to push or pause. Each decision drains a little more discipline, and discipline, once depleted, does not magically return. This is why people fail at night. Not because they're lazy, because they're mentally spent. They didn't lose discipline in one moment. They leaked it all day. You have a choice. You can keep negotiating with yourself every hour, or you can remove negotiation entirely. High performers remove choice before the day begins. Same wake-up time, same morning routine, same work blocks, same training schedule, same rules. Not because they're boring, because they're effective. Routine is not restriction. Routine is freedom. When something is decided, it no longer costs energy. You don't debate brushing your teeth. You don't negotiate stopping at red lights. But because those decisions were made long ago. The top 1% treat discipline the same way. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it today?" They ask, "What did I already decide?" That's the key. Most people wait for motivation. High performers rely on structure. Structure does the thinking for you. Structure protects your energy. Structure makes execution automatic. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Discipline is not force. Discipline is pre-commitment. You decide in advance who you are and how you operate. Then you stop debating. Here's what weakens people. Daily choices about non-negotiables. Should I work out today? Should I focus today? Should I stick to the plan today? That question alone is the problem. The top 1% never ask it. They already decided. Training happens. Work happens. Focus happens. No discussion. You don't need their permission to live like this. You don't need anyone to agree with your rules. You have a choice. Either you decide once and build power, or you decide repeatedly and drain yourself. Look at your life. Where are you still negotiating? Your sleep, your health, your work blocks, your boundaries. Every negotiation is a leak. Every leak weakens you. Decide once. Obey daily. This is not about being rigid. It's about being ruthless with what matters. High performers use fixed schedules not because they love structure, but because structure removes temptation. When the time arrives, the action happens. No debate. No drama. No delay. That's discipline. Let's make this practical. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop waking up without a plan. Stop deciding your priorities in real time. Stop leaving discipline up to mood. Stop pretending flexibility is freedom. Flexibility without structure is chaos. Here's what you must start doing. Decide your non-negotiables once. Your wake-up time. Your deep work window. Your training schedule. Your shutdown time. Write them down. Not as hopes, as rules. Rules remove emotion. Rules remove negotiation. Rules protect your future self from your weaker moments. That's the key. The top 1% respect their future self enough to decide in advance. They don't sabotage tomorrow with today's excuses. They understand something most people miss. Your mind is strongest before the day begins. That's when decisions must be made. By midday, discipline is fragile. By night, it's nearly gone. So stop deciding late. Decide early. Decide once. Then execute without emotion. Execution does not require inspiration. It requires obedience. This is uncomfortable for people who like control, because it means surrendering daily choice. But choice is not power. Consistency is power. Every time you obey a decision, your identity strengthens. You become someone who follows through. Someone who doesn't negotiate with weakness. Someone who can be trusted. And trust in yourself is everything. You don't need motivation when you trust yourself. You don't need hype when your systems work. It's not about intelligence. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. Discipline is deciding once and honoring it daily. Say it again. Decide once. Obey daily. This is how the top 1% stay consistent when others collapse. They don't fight themselves. They don't argue internally. They don't drain energy on choice. They show up. They execute. They move on. Controlled. Relentless. If you feel tired all the time, look at how many decisions you're making. If you feel inconsistent, look at how much you're negotiating. The solution is not trying harder. The solution is deciding less. You have a choice. You can continue living in daily debate. Or you can design a life that runs on rules. Rules don't care about feelings. Rules don't respond to excuses. Rules don't ask for permission. Rules execute. That's why they work. This chapter is not about productivity tricks. It's about reclaiming mental power. Because when decisions disappear, focus appears. When focus appears, output increases. And when output increases, results compound. Decide who you are. Decide how you operate. Decide what you tolerate. Then stop thinking about it. You don't need their permission to be disciplined. You don't need approval to live intentionally. You have a choice. Make fewer decisions. Build more power. Decide once. Obey daily. Lock this in. The more decisions you remove, the stronger you become. The less you negotiate, the more you execute. The more you obey structure, the freer you feel. You've eliminated busyness. You've eliminated decision fatigue. Now something else becomes obvious. Time was never the problem. Effort was never the problem. The real limit has always been something deeper. Your energy. You've stopped negotiating your actions. Now it's time to protect the fuel behind them. Chapter 3. Energy is the real currency. Time management is a lie. Everyone gets the same 24 hours. The poor, the disciplined, the distracted. Time is equal. Energy is not. That's the truth most people never accept. And because they don't accept it, they manage the wrong thing. They manage calendars. They manage schedules. They manage reminders. And they still feel drained. Still behind. Still inconsistent. Because time was never the problem. Energy was. That's the key. You don't fail because you lack hours. You fail because you waste energy. You wake up tired. You start the day scattered. You burn your best energy on meaningless tasks. And then you try to do important work when there's nothing left. That's not discipline. That's self-sabotage. You have a choice. You can keep pretending all hours are equal. Or you can start respecting the truth. Not all hours are created equal. Not all effort produces results. Not all work deserves your best energy. The top 1% understand this early. They don't ask, "How much time do I have?" They ask, "When is my energy highest?" And they build everything around that answer. That's why 3 focused hours beat 10 distracted ones. Every time. You've seen this in your own life. 1 clear hour where everything clicks. Ideas flow. Decisions are sharp. Execution feels clean. Then compare that to a long day of interruptions. Meetings. Messages. Scrolling. Switching. 10 hours gone. Nothing meaningful created. Same time. Different energy. Time management is a lie. Energy management is the truth. Energy is the fuel behind focus. Focus is the engine behind results. No energy. No focus. No results. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Discipline protects energy. Weakness wastes it. Most people leak energy all day without noticing. They wake up and immediately check their phone. Energy leak. They respond to messages before thinking. Energy leak. They argue internally about what to do. Energy leak. They motive. Energy leak. By the time it's time to do real work, they're empty. And then they blame themselves. I'm lazy. I'm unmotivated. I lack discipline. You lack energy awareness. That's the key. The top 1% are ruthless with their energy. They protect mornings. They guard focus windows. They eliminate unnecessary drains. Not because they're fragile, because they're effective. They understand that energy spent on nonsense cannot be recovered. Once it's gone, it's gone. You don't need their permission to live like this. You don't need to justify why you're unavailable. You don't need to explain why you protect certain hours. You have a choice. Either you defend your energy, or you donate it to things that don't matter. Here's the psychological truth. Your brain has peaks and valleys, natural cycles of power and fatigue. Ignoring them doesn't make you disciplined. It makes you inefficient. Working against your energy is not strength. It's ignorance. The disciplined person works with reality, not against it. They do deep work when energy is high. They do shallow work when energy is low. They rest before collapse. That's discipline. Let's be clear. This is not about comfort. This is not about avoiding hard work. This is about precision. Doing the right work at the right time. Most people reverse this. They do easy work when energy is high. They do hard work when energy is low. And then they wonder why everything feels heavy. You have a choice. Flip the order. Protect your best energy for your most important work. Not email. Not meetings. Not scrolling. Creation. Strategy. Execution. That's the key. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop starting your day with distraction. Stop burning prime energy on low-value tasks. Stop pretending exhaustion is a badge of honor. Stop saying yes during your peak hours. Burnout is not proof of commitment. It's proof of mismanagement. Here's what you must start doing. Identify your energy peaks. Defend them like territory. Schedule your hardest work there. Eliminate interruptions during those windows. Phone away. Notifications off. Doors closed. You don't need their permission. This is not selfish. This is disciplined. Discipline is choosing effectiveness over availability. Say that again. Discipline is choosing effectiveness over availability. The top 1% are not accessible all day. They are effective for part of the day. And that's enough. Protect energy first. Time will follow. Say it again. Protect energy first. Time will follow. When energy is protected, focus deepens. When focus deepens, output increases. When output increases, confidence grows. And confidence feeds energy. It compounds. This is why disciplined people look calm. They're not rushing. They're not scattered. They're aligned. They don't fight their day. They design it. It's not about working more. It's about working cleaner. Cleaner inputs. Cleaner focus. Cleaner exits. You don't need 12 hours of grind. You need 3 hours of truth. 3 hours where you don't lie to yourself. Where you don't check out. Where you don't escape. 3 hours of deep execution. That's enough to separate you from most people. Most people never do even one. Because it requires energy discipline. Energy discipline means saying no early so you don't have to quit late. Energy discipline means resting before you're desperate. Energy discipline means stopping when the work is done, not when you're destroyed. That's the key. This chapter is not permission to be soft. It's instruction to be precise. You still show up. You still execute. You still push. But you push with intention. You stop wasting fuel on things that don't move the needle. If it doesn't move the needle, it's noise. And noise drains energy. You have a choice. You can keep managing time and wondering why nothing changes. Or you can manage energy and watch everything shift. It's not about hours. It's not about effort. It's about discipline. Discipline decides where energy goes. Weakness lets energy leak. Lock this in. Energy is the real currency. Spend it intentionally. Invest it wisely. You've removed busyness. You've removed decision fatigue. Now you're ready for the next level. Because once energy is protected, focus becomes sharp. And when focus becomes sharp, distractions become obvious. You've learned to guard your fuel. Now it's time to turn it into power. Chapter 4. Focus is a weapon. Multitasking is self-sabotage. Most people think they're productive because they're doing many things at once. They're wrong. They're not productive. They're fragmented. They call it multitasking. It sounds impressive. It sounds modern. It sounds efficient. It's none of those things. Multitasking is self-sabotage. That's the key. The human brain cannot do two important things at the same time. It doesn't multitask. It switches. Fast, clumsy, costly. Every switch drains power. Every switch breaks momentum. Every switch lowers quality. You don't notice it in the moment, but you feel it at the end of the day. Mental fog. Incomplete work. Constant fatigue. You were busy, but nothing is finished. You have a choice. You can keep splitting your attention and calling it productivity. Or you can concentrate your power and start winning. The top 1% understand this early. Focus is not a preference. It's a weapon. And like any weapon, it only works when it's aimed. Scatter it, and it's useless. Concentrate it, and it's unstoppable. Most people live in constant interruption. Notifications. Messages. Tabs open. Background noise. People pulling at them. They think they're handling it. They're not. Their attention is being hijacked. Every notification trains your brain to expect distraction. Every glance at your phone weakens your ability to stay with discomfort. Every interruption resets your concentration. And then you wonder why deep work feels impossible. It's not because you're broken. It's because you've trained your brain to be shallow. That's the key. Focus is a skill. And like any skill, it strengthens with use and weakens with neglect. Multitasking neglects focus. Single tasking sharpens it. One task. One window. One win. Say it again. One task. One window. One win. The top 1% don't do more things. They do fewer things with complete attention. They don't split energy. They concentrate it. And because of that, their work has weight. Let's be honest. Most people multitask to avoid discomfort. Deep focus is uncomfortable. It forces you to sit with difficulty. It exposes your limits. It removes escape. Distraction is easier. Checking your phone feels productive. Responding feels useful. Switching feels active. But it's avoidance. It's not about intelligence. It's not about ability. It's about discipline. Discipline stays with one thing until it's done. Weakness escapes when it gets hard. You have a choice. You can keep numbing yourself with stimulation, or you can train your mind to stay. The top 1% choose staying. They stay with the problem. They stay with the task. They stay with the moment. And that's why they produce at a level others can't reach. Here's the psychological truth. Every time you interrupt focus, your brain pays a restart cost. It takes time to re-enter depth. Minutes, not seconds. So when you check your phone, just for a second, you don't lose a second. You lose momentum. Do that enough times and deep work never happens. You live in the shallow end. Busy, distracted, underperforming. That's the key. The world profits from your distraction, but your future suffers from it. You don't need their permission to disconnect. You don't need approval to go silent. You don't need to explain why you're unreachable for a while. Focus requires boundaries. Boundaries require discipline. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop checking notifications during important work. Stop opening multiple tabs, just in case. Stop answering messages immediately. Stop pretending you can handle constant interruption. You can't. No one can. Here's what you must start doing. Create focus windows. One task only. No switching. No exceptions. Decide in advance what you will work on. Remove everything else. Phone out of reach. Notifications off. Environment quiet. One task. One window. One win. This is not about being extreme. It's about being effective. Even 30 minutes of true focus beats hours of fractured effort. And when you repeat this daily, something changes. Your mind gets stronger. Your tolerance for discomfort increases. Your output improves. That's discipline replacing weakness. It's not about willpower. It's about structure. Structure protects focus. Focus creates results. Multitasking destroys both. The top 1% know this. That's why they protect their attention fiercely. They don't brag about being busy. They don't respond instantly. They don't scatter themselves. They choose depth over noise. And depth compounds. One focused session builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds consistency. And consistency separates winners from everyone else. You have a choice. Every time you reach for distraction, every time you switch tasks, every time you break focus, you can obey impulse, or you can obey discipline. Discipline is staying. Staying when it's boring. Staying when it's hard. Staying when your mind looks for escape. That's the key. Focus is not about intensity. It's about exclusivity. One thing gets all of you. Everything else waits. If it doesn't move the needle, it's noise. And noise has no place in a focus window. This chapter is not telling you to work nonstop. It's telling you to work clean. Clean focus. Clean execution. Clean finish. When the task is done, you stop. When the window ends, you rest. That's discipline. Most people mix everything together. Work, distraction, rest, stress. And they never fully do any of it. The disciplines separate. Work is work. Focus is focus. Rest is rest. No overlap. That's why they don't burn out. That's why they move faster with less effort. Multitasking feels like strength. It's weakness disguised as activity. Focus feels slow at first, but it creates speed over time. You don't need their permission to choose depth. You don't need validation to protect your attention. You have a choice. Choose one task. Give it your full presence. Finish it. One task. One window. One win. Lock this in. Focus is a weapon. And you've been dulling it with distraction. Now you know the truth. You've eliminated busyness. You've eliminated decision fatigue. You've learned to protect energy. You've sharpened focus. Now comes the next step. Because once focus is strong, something else becomes obvious. You're still doing too much. Not because you're unfocused, but because you haven't learned to subtract. You've learned to aim the weapon. Now it's time to lighten the load. Chapter 5. Subtraction creates speed. Do less to achieve more. Most people think progress comes from addition. More tasks, more goals, more meetings, more commitments. They keep piling things on. And then they wonder why everything feels heavy. That's not growth. That's congestion. Speed does not come from doing more. Speed comes from removing what doesn't matter. That's the key. The top 1% move faster not because they hustle harder, but because they carry less. Less noise. Less obligation. Less distraction. They understand a truth most people avoid. Every yes costs you something. Energy. Focus. And most yes don't pay you back. You have a choice. You can keep saying yes to stay liked, needed, and busy. Or you can start saying no to become effective. High performers say no faster than others say yes. Not rudely, not emotionally, decisively, because they know something you must learn. Every no buys you power. Say it again. Every no buys you power. Power to focus. Power to execute. Power to win. Most people fear saying no because they confuse it with loss. They think no means missed opportunity. They think no means conflict. They think no means rejection. But what they never calculate is the cost of yes. Yes to a meeting that leads nowhere. Yes to a favor that drains energy. Yes to a commitment that steals focus. Those yes don't make you productive. They make you diluted. That's the key. Diluted effort produces diluted results. The top 1% are not busy proving themselves. They're busy protecting what matters. They subtract aggressively. They remove low-value tasks. They eliminate unnecessary meetings. They cut commitments that don't align. Not later, but because subtraction creates speed. Imagine trying to run while carrying extra weight. You can still move, but you won't be fast. Most people are running with unnecessary weight. Old commitments, outdated goals, people-pleasing habits, fear of disappointing others. And they call that responsibility. It's not responsibility. It's weakness. It's not about kindness. It's about discipline. Discipline knows what to cut. You don't need their permission to say no. You don't need approval to simplify your life. You don't need to explain every boundary. You have a choice. Either you protect your priorities, or you sacrifice them to stay comfortable. High performers choose protection. They ask a simple question before committing. Does this move the needle? If the answer is no, it's gone. If it doesn't move the needle, it's noise. Say it again. If it doesn't move the needle, it's noise. Noise slows you down. Noise drains energy. Noise hides what matters. Subtraction removes noise. And when noise is removed, clarity appears. Clarity creates speed. This is uncomfortable because it requires honesty. You must admit that some things you're doing don't matter. Some relationships don't add value. Some habits are just avoidance. That's hard. So most people stay overloaded. Because overload feels productive. But overload is a trap. It keeps you busy enough to avoid real work. It keeps you exhausted enough to avoid change. The top 1% refuse this trap. They ruthlessly edit their lives. They don't ask, what else can I do? They ask, what can I remove? That's the key. Let's get practical. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop attending meetings without a clear outcome. Stop keeping tasks that don't produce results. Stop holding commitments out of guilt. Stop saying yes just to avoid discomfort. Discomfort is temporary. Dilution is permanent. Here's what you must start doing. Audit your tasks weekly. Remove one thing that doesn't matter. Decline one low-value commitment. Create space for what actually counts. Every no buys you power. That power shows up as focus, as energy, as momentum. And momentum changes everything. When your schedule is lighter, your mind is clearer. When your mind is clearer, execution improves. When execution improves, confidence grows. This is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things. Most people are exhausted because they're trying to do everything. High performers are calm because they're doing almost nothing exceptionally well. That's discipline. Discipline is not adding pressure. It's removing friction. Subtraction removes friction. Fewer tasks means fewer transitions. Fewer transitions means deeper focus. Deeper focus means faster results. You have a choice. You can keep carrying weight that doesn't serve you. Or you can put it down and move freely. Put it down. The extra project. The unnecessary obligation. The constant availability. You don't need their permission. The top 1% don't explain their boundaries. They enforce them. Not aggressively. Consistently. Consistency makes boundaries respected. This chapter is not about being selfish. It's about being effective. Effectiveness requires saying no. Every high performer you admire has said no more times than you can imagine. That's why they have space. That's why they have speed. That's why they have results. You can't optimize what you refuse to eliminate. Let that sink in. You can't optimize what you refuse to eliminate. No system will save an overloaded life. No hack will fix a cluttered schedule. Subtraction comes first. Then optimization. That's the order. Busy people optimize clutter. Effective people remove it. That's the key. This is where discipline replaces weakness. Weakness wants to be liked. Discipline wants results. Weakness says yes to avoid tension. Discipline says no to protect direction. Weakness adds more. Discipline subtracts. You have a choice. Right now. Look at your commitments. Which ones move the needle? Which ones are just noise? Be honest. Then cut one. Not tomorrow. But that one cut will give you energy. That energy will give you focus. That focus will give you momentum. And momentum is addictive. This is how speed is created. Not by rushing. By simplifying. Lock this in. Do less to achieve more. Say no faster. Carry less. Every no buys you power. You've learned to eliminate busyness. You've removed decision fatigue. You've protected energy. You've sharpened focus. You've learned to subtract. Now comes the next layer. Because once your life is simplified, something becomes clear. Motivation is still unreliable. And relying on it will eventually fail you. You've cleared the path. Now you need something stronger than motivation to walk it. Chapter 6: Systems Beat Motivation. Motivation is a liar. It shows up loud. It feels powerful. And then it disappears the moment things get uncomfortable. You felt this before. You were motivated on Monday. Focused. Energized. Ready to change your life. By Thursday, you were negotiating with yourself again. That's not because you're weak. That's not because you lack potential. It's because you trusted feelings instead of building systems. That's the key. Motivation is emotional. Systems are mechanical. Motivation depends on mood. Systems depend on structure. And structure wins. Every time. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to systems. Say it again. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to systems. That's the truth no one wants to accept. Because systems require discipline. And discipline doesn't care how you feel. You have a choice. You can keep waiting to feel like it. Or you can design a life where action happens automatically. Most people treat motivation like fuel. They think if they can just stay inspired, if they can just watch one more video, read one more quote, listen to one more speech, then they'll finally be consistent. That's fantasy. High performers don't chase motivation. They eliminate the need for it. They don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" They ask, "What's the system?" And then they execute. Even on bad days. Especially on bad days. Because progress isn't built on good moods. It's built on repeatable behaviors. That's the key. Let's get something clear. If your success depends on how you feel, you will fail. Not once. Repeatedly. Because feelings change. Energy fluctuates. Confidence dips. Life interferes. But systems remain. A system doesn't negotiate. A system doesn't complain. A system doesn't need encouragement. It runs. And when it runs, you win. Here's the psychological trap. Your brain wants comfort, not growth. Motivation feels good. Discipline feels heavy. So the brain chooses motivation because it provides emotional reward without effort. You feel productive without actually doing the work. That's self-deception. It's not about inspiration. It's about discipline. That's the key. Let's talk about habit stacking. This is where systems begin. You already have habits. You brush your teeth. You drink water. You check your phone. Habit stacking means attaching a new behavior to an existing one. No thinking. No debate. For example, after I brush my teeth, I stretch for 5 minutes. After I pour my morning coffee, I journal 1 page. After I sit at my desk, I open the one file that matters. You don't need motivation for this. You just need sequence. Action follows action. That's how systems work. Next, environment design. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Read that again. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. If distractions are within reach, you will use them. If junk food is visible, you will eat it. If your phone is beside you, you will check it. Not because you're weak, because you're human. So stop blaming yourself and start redesigning your environment. That's the key. Put the phone in another room. Block the apps. Clear the desk. Prepare the tools the night before. Make the right action easy. Make the wrong action hard. That's discipline in physical form. You don't need their permission to do this. You don't need approval. You don't need validation. You need structure. Now let's talk about friction removal. Every action has friction. Effort. Resistance. High performers remove friction from the behaviors that matter. They don't make success harder than it needs to be. They automate. They prepare. They simplify. Clothes laid out the night before. Meals planned in advance. Work blocks scheduled, not decided. No energy wasted on choice. Because every decision drains power. That's the key. Most people think discipline means forcing yourself. It doesn't. Discipline means designing a system where forcing isn't required. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs rely on emotion. Professionals rely on process. You have a choice. Let's be honest. If you only work when you feel inspired, you're not serious. If your goals disappear when motivation fades, they were never goals. They were wishes. True? Absolutely. It's not about passion. It's about discipline. Say it. It's not about passion. It's about discipline. Here's another hard truth. Motivation is reactive. Systems are proactive. Motivation reacts to success. Systems create success. Motivation waits for the right moment. Systems assume the moment will never be right. So they act anyway. That's the mindset shift. Let's talk about consistency. Not intensity. Intensity looks impressive. Consistency changes lives. Anyone can go hard for a week. Few can show up daily. Systems are how you show up daily. Small actions. Non-negotiable. Repeated. That's how identity changes. You don't become disciplined by feeling disciplined. You become disciplined by acting disciplined. That's the key. Now listen carefully. You will not always feel ready. You will not always feel confident. You will not always feel motivated. And that doesn't matter, because systems don't care how you feel. They only care if you execute. What do you need to stop doing? Stop waiting for the perfect mood. Stop relying on willpower. Stop romanticizing motivation. What do you need to start doing? Start building routines. Start designing your environment. Start removing friction. Replace emotion with structure. That's how discipline replaces weakness. Here's a simple rule. If something is important, it must be scheduled. Not remembered. Not hoped for. Scheduled. If it's not on the calendar, it's optional. And optional things don't get done. That's the key. You don't need more energy. You need fewer decisions. You don't need more confidence. You need more systems. You don't need to feel ready. You need to start. And once the system is in place, momentum takes over. High performers don't ask, how do I stay motivated? They ask, how do I make this automatic? That's a different level of thinking. That's control. You don't need their permission to change your structure. You don't need approval to redesign your life. You have a choice. Stay emotional or become strategic. Motivation fades. Systems don't. Say it until it sinks in. Motivation fades. Systems don't. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to systems. That's the law. This chapter isn't about hype. It's about permanence. Because real transformation isn't emotional. It's architectural. You build it, brick by brick, routine by routine, until discipline becomes identity. You've stopped relying on feelings. You've replaced emotion with structure. Now it's time to take that discipline and apply it to the most abused resource in your life. Your time. Chapter 7. Ruthless prioritization. Everything is not important. Say that again. Everything is not important. Most people are overwhelmed not because they have too much to do, but because they treat everything as equal. Emails feel urgent. Messages feel important. Small tasks feel productive. And the real work? It gets pushed to later. That's not bad luck. That's bad prioritization. That's the key. The top 1% don't manage time better. They manage importance better. They understand a brutal truth. Progress does not come from doing more. Comes from doing what matters most. Everything else is noise. You have a choice. You can keep being busy, or you can start being effective. Here's the psychological problem. Your brain loves completion, not impact. Checking boxes gives dopamine. Deep work gives results, but delayed. So the brain avoids the hard thing and hides behind small wins. That's self-sabotage disguised as productivity. It's not about effort. It's about discipline. That's the key. Ruthless prioritization means this. One task matters more than all others today. Not 3. Not 5. What? The task that, if completed, makes the day a win, even if nothing else gets done. High performers obsess over this question. What is the one thing I must do today that moves everything forward? And they do it first. before messages, before meetings, before distractions. That's discipline in action. Let's talk about the one-win rule. Every single day, there must be one non-negotiable win. One task, one outcome, one decisive action. Until that task is done, nothing else counts. Not emails, not scrolling, not busy work, because movement only comes from leverage. That's the key. Most people reverse the order. They start with easy tasks. They warm up. They get into the flow. And by the time they reach the important work, energy is gone. Focus is fractured. The day is already lost. High performers do the opposite. They attack the hardest, most important task first. Cold, uncomfortable, focused, because priority demands respect. Here's the hard truth. If you keep saying everything is important, you're lying to yourself. Important things don't compete. They dominate. If something can be postponed endlessly, it was never a priority. That's the key. Ruthless prioritization also means subtraction. You must eliminate commitments, conversations. If it doesn't move the needle, it gets cut. Not later. You don't need their permission to say no. You don't need to explain your boundaries. Your goals don't care about other people's expectations. Let's get specific. What do you need to stop doing? Stop reacting first thing in the morning. Stop letting inboxes dictate your day. Stop mistaking urgency for importance. What do you need to start doing? Start deciding your one win the night before. Start protecting your first hours. Start saying no faster than you say yes. That's how discipline replaces weakness. Here's another reality. Focus is finite. Every yes costs you something. Every commitment drains attention. High performers guard their focus like currency. Because it is. They know. If everything matters, nothing moves. Say it. If everything matters, nothing moves. That's the key. Most people live in reactive mode. They answer. They respond. They adjust. They never lead their day. They let the day lead them. Ruthless prioritization flips the power dynamic. You decide first. You act first. You protect what matters. Everything else waits. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being serious. Serious people don't dilute their energy. They concentrate it. One direction. One objective. One execution. That's how momentum is built. Here's a simple test. At the end of the day, ask, what did I do today that actually mattered? If the answer is unclear, your priorities are broken. That's not judgment. That's feedback. And feedback is a gift. If you use it, you don't need more time. You need clearer priorities. You don't need to work harder. You need to work on what matters. It's not about busyness. It's about impact. That's the key. Ruthless prioritization will feel uncomfortable. People won't understand. Opportunities will be declined. Tasks will remain undone. But that's the cost of progress. You can't move forward while carrying everything. You must choose. You have a choice. Live scattered or live aligned. Do everything or do what matters. The top 1% aren't special. They're selective. And that selectivity compounds. Let this sink in. Your life moves in the direction of your priorities. Not your intentions. Not your motivation. Your priorities. And priorities are proven by action. You've learned to build systems. You've learned to stop relying on feelings. Now you've learned how to aim that discipline. One task. One win. One direction. Because when focus is ruthless, progress becomes inevitable. Now it's time to protect that focus from the one thing that destroys it faster than anything else. Noise. Chapter 8. Discipline is self-respect. Discipline is not punishment. Say it clearly. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is alignment. Alignment between who you say you are and what you actually do. That's the key. Most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's harsh. They think it's restrictive. They think it's something forced on them. So they resist it. And that resistance costs them everything. Because without discipline, there is no freedom. Only chaos disguised as choice. You have a choice. Here is the truth most people avoid. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you lose self-respect. Not loudly, not instantly, quietly, internally. And once self-respect erodes, confidence follows. And trust. Then identity. That's how people slowly fall apart. That's the key. Discipline is how you rebuild that trust. Not motivation. Not inspiration. Not waiting for the right mood. Discipline. Doing what you said you would do. Even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Let's get honest. You don't lack information. You lack consistency. You already know what to do. Sleep earlier. Train regularly. Work without distraction. Stop wasting time. The gap is not knowledge. It's discipline. It's not about intelligence, it's about discipline. That's the key. Consistency creates freedom. Read that again. Consistency creates freedom. When your actions are predictable, your results become predictable. And when results are predictable, stress disappears. Chaos comes from inconsistency. Freedom comes from structure. High performers understand this deeply. Think about training when tired. Not injured. Not sick. Just tired. That moment when your body wants comfort and your mind wants excuses. That's the moment discipline speaks. Not loudly. Simply. Do it anyway. That single decision builds self-respect. Because you didn't obey emotion. You obeyed principle. That's the key. Same with work when bored. Boredom is not a signal to stop. It's a signal to mature. Children chase stimulation. Professionals execute regardless of feeling. You don't need their permission to be disciplined. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You need standards. Discipline is saying, this is who I am. This is what I do. No negotiation. That's self-respect in action. Here's the psychological shift you must make. Stop seeing discipline as restriction. Start seeing it as identity protection. When you skip what matters, you damage your identity. When you follow through, you reinforce it. Identity is built through repetition. That's the key. Most people wait to feel disciplined. That never works. Discipline comes after action, not before. You act first. Confidence follows. You show up first. Motivation follows. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to discipline. Say it. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to discipline. Now let's talk about what you must stop doing. Stop negotiating with yourself. Stop asking how you feel before acting. Stop lowering standards to avoid discomfort. Every negotiation weakens authority. And when you lose authority over yourself, nothing else listens. What must you start doing? Start keeping small promises daily. Start doing the basics exceptionally well. Start finishing what you begin. Discipline grows from consistency, not intensity. You don't need dramatic change. You need reliable execution. That's the key. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't post updates. It doesn't seek attention. It shows up. It does the work. It leaves. That's why it works. Look at people you respect. Not admire. Respect. They are consistent. Not perfect. Consistent. They do what they say. They show up on time. They handle boredom without collapsing. That's discipline. And that's why they are trusted. Self-respect is not confidence. Confidence comes and goes. Self-respect stays. Because it's built on evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. That's the key. Let me say this clearly. You don't hate discipline. You hate being reminded of what you avoid. Discipline exposes excuses. It removes hiding places. And that makes people uncomfortable. But growth is uncomfortable. Every disciplined action sends a message inward. I can trust myself. Every undisciplined action sends the opposite. I don't mean what I say. Over time, those messages compound. One builds strength. The other builds doubt. You have a choice. This is not about being extreme. It's about being aligned. Aligned with your goals. Aligned with your values. Aligned with your future self. Discipline is how you respect that future. When you don't feel like training, train. When you don't feel like working, work. When you don't feel like starting, start. Not recklessly. Intentionally. Because feelings are weather. Discipline is climate. That's the key. Let's address the lie. Rest means stopping. Rest is planned. Quitting is emotional. Discipline includes rest. But it never includes excuses. Learn the difference. Discipline is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things consistently. Simple actions. Done daily. Without drama. That's how lives change. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need to stop breaking promises to yourself. Start there. One promise. One action. One follow-through. Then repeat. Consistency creates freedom. Here's the deeper truth. When you respect yourself, you stop tolerating chaos. You stop tolerating distraction. You stop tolerating mediocrity. Not angrily, calmly, because disciplined people don't argue with noise. They ignore it. That's the key. Discipline is the foundation. Without it, nothing lasts. Not success. Not confidence. Not peace. With it, everything stabilizes. Let this lock in. Discipline is not what you lose. It's what you gain. Clarity, control, self-respect. And self-respect is the root of all strength. You've learned to prioritize. You've learned to eliminate noise. Now you must learn to protect your energy by respecting yourself daily. Because the moment you stop leaking self-respect, everything accelerates. And to protect discipline, you must control what enters your mind. Because focus is fragile. And noise is everywhere. You've rebuilt respect. Now it's time to protect it from distraction. Chapter 9. Environment shapes behavior. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Read that again. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. That's the truth most people refuse to face. They think they fail because they are weak. They think they lack discipline. They think they need more motivation. But they are fighting the room they are standing in. That's the key. Willpower is limited. It drains. It fades. It collapses under pressure. Environment does not argue. It does not negotiate. It simply influences. Relentlessly. You have a choice. Every behavior you repeat is being encouraged by something around you. Every distraction has a doorway. Every habit has a trigger. Every weakness has support. Most people never remove the support. Then they blame themselves. That's backwards. Let's get precise. If your phone is within reach, you will touch it. Not because you're undisciplined, because you're human. If notifications are on, your attention will fracture. If junk food is visible, you will eat it. Environment wins. Every time. That's the key. High performers understand this. They don't rely on willpower. They design surroundings that make the right action easy and the wrong action difficult. That's discipline in physical form. Look at your workspace. Be honest. Is it built for focus or comfort? Comfort breeds distraction. Focus requires intention. Clutter creates mental noise. Clean space creates clarity. That's not philosophy. That's psychology. Your brain responds to cues. Visual cues, auditory cues, digital cues. Each one pulls you somewhere. Your environment is constantly giving instructions. The question is simple. Are you obeying chaos or structure? You have a choice. Let's talk about the phone. The most destructive object in modern productivity. Not evil, just unmanaged. If it's on your desk, it owns a piece of your attention. Even silent, even face down. That's the key. Remove it. Different room. Different outcome. Change the room. Change the result. Same with digital space. An overloaded desktop creates mental clutter. Unread emails create background stress. Too many open tabs create cognitive fatigue. You don't feel it consciously, but it drains you. That's how people stay busy and exhausted. Environment isn't just physical. It's digital, social, emotional. Fear, what you see, what you consume, all of it shapes behavior. Let's get practical. What must you stop doing? Stop trying to resist temptation while sitting inside it. Stop relying on discipline in hostile environments. Stop blaming yourself for predictable outcomes. That's not strength. That's ignorance. What must you start doing? Start removing friction for good habits. Start adding friction for bad ones. Start designing your surroundings intentionally. Discipline works best when it doesn't have to fight. That's the key. Example: if you want to write, open the document first, not after coffee, not after scrolling. First, make the desired action the default. Environment does the rest. If you want to train, lay out your clothes the night before. No thinking, no debate. You don't rise to motivation. You fall to systems. And systems live in environments. If you want to focus, close everything except the one task. One screen, one window, one outcome. Focus is fragile. Protect it physically. High performers don't trust themselves to make good decisions all day. They eliminate decisions. They decide once. Then they obey the environment they designed. That's self-respect. Here's the deeper psychological truth. Your identity follows your environment. If your space signals seriousness, you act serious. If your space signals chaos, you act chaotic. Environment is identity reinforcement. That's the key. Look at athletes. Their environments are controlled. Schedules, nutrition, recovery. Nothing is accidental. They don't wake up and decide to be disciplined. They wake up inside discipline. That's the difference. Look at high-level creators. Minimal workspaces. Limited inputs. Strict boundaries. Not because they're extreme, because they're effective. You don't need their permission to redesign your space. You don't need to explain. You don't need approval. If something drains your focus, remove it. Calmly. Without drama. Let's talk about people. Environment includes humans. Some people pull you forward. Some people pull you backward. Repeated exposure shapes behavior. Energy transfers. Standards spread. Choose carefully. You have a choice. This doesn't mean isolation. It means awareness. Who makes discipline harder? Who normalizes excuses? Who reinforces distraction? Distance creates clarity. That's the key. Environment design is not about perfection. It's about alignment. Align your surroundings with who you are becoming, not who you were. Here's a simple rule. If a behavior keeps repeating, stop blaming character. Inspect environment. Something is allowing it. Remove that allowance. Results change automatically. This is why willpower fails. Willpower tries to override design. Design always wins. Every time. Let this lock in. Change the room. Change the result. Say it. Change the room. Change the result. That's not a slogan. That's a law. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer obstacles. You need fewer distractions. You need fewer open loops draining attention. Build environments that make discipline inevitable, not heroic. Inevitable, where the right action is the path of least resistance. That's mastery. You've learned discipline. You've learned focus. You've learned self-respect. Now you must guard them, because what you consume determines what you produce. Inputs shape outputs. Thoughts shape actions. Results follow. You've shaped the room. Now it's time to shape the mind. Chapter 10. Rest is a strategy. Burnout is not a badge of honor. Say it again. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It is not proof of commitment. It is not evidence of ambition. It is not strength. It is mismanagement. That's the key. High performers do not glorify exhaustion. They avoid it, because exhaustion makes you sloppy. It makes you emotional. It makes you short-sighted. Burned out people feel busy. They feel important, but they perform poorly. You have a choice. The lie you've been taught is simple. If you're tired, push harder. That advice destroys more potential than laziness ever could. Because tired effort is inefficient effort. And inefficient effort compounds mistakes. That's the key. Rest is not quitting. Rest is preparation. Strategic rest multiplies performance. Unplanned rest comes as burnout. Choose wisely. Your body and mind are systems. Systems need recovery. Ignore recovery long enough, and the system fails. Not dramatically at first. Quietly. Missed focus. Slower thinking. Shorter patience. Then collapse. Let's talk about sleep. Not motivation sleep. Not when I can sleep. Disciplined sleep. Sleep is not optional. Sleep is productivity infrastructure. Every hour of poor sleep costs you hours of clarity. That's not weakness. That's biology. High performers protect sleep like capital. Same bedtime. Same wake time. Same wind-down routine. No negotiation. Because sleep is leverage. That's the key. Now let's address the real problem. Most people don't rest intentionally. They crash. They scroll. They binge. They numb. That's not rest. That's avoidance. And it doesn't restore you. Rest with intention. Say it. Rest with intention. That means rest that restores capacity. Not rest that drains it further. Examples. A strategic walk without your phone. A short nap, timed and controlled. A day off with structure, not chaos. Rest that sharpens. Not rest that dulls. Mental resets matter. If you never stop input, your output degrades. Your mind needs silence, not stimulation. Silence resets attention. That's the key. Here's the discipline most people lack. Stopping before collapse. They wait until they are forced. That's not toughness. That's poor planning. High performers stop early. They leave capacity unused. Because unused capacity tomorrow beats exhaustion today. That's how longevity is built. Let's be direct. What must you stop doing? Stop wearing exhaustion as identity. Stop bragging about overwork. Stop equating rest with laziness. That mindset keeps you weak. What must you start doing? Start scheduling rest like work. Start defending recovery windows. Start respecting your limits without surrendering standards. That's discipline. Rest does not mean losing momentum. It preserves it. It's not about being soft. It's about being effective. It's not about comfort. It's about discipline. That's the key. Here's a truth you may resist. If you need constant pressure to perform, you lack structure. Pressure should be occasional. Structure should be constant. Rest allows structure to work. Look at elite athletes. They train hard. Then they recover harder. Because adaptation happens during rest. The same applies to your mind. Creative insight appears after recovery. Focus sharpens after sleep. Emotional control stabilizes after rest. Burnout removes all three. You don't need their permission to rest strategically. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. If rest improves performance, it is non-negotiable. Rest is part of discipline, not separate from it. If you skip rest, you are undisciplined. That's the key. Let this lock in. Rest with intention. Work with precision. Say it. Rest with intention. Work with precision. You are not a machine, but you are responsible for maintenance. Ignore maintenance, and output collapses. Respect maintenance, and performance compounds. You've learned to focus. You've learned to prioritize. You've learned to design environments. Now you must sustain it. Because productivity is not a sprint. It's a system. And systems require recovery to endure. You've conquered chaos. You've built discipline. Now it's time to protect longevity. Because the ultimate productivity skill is staying in the game long enough to win. You've learned how to work. Now you must learn when to stop. And next, you'll face the final shift. From effort to identity. From doing to being. Chapter 11. Review, refine, repeat. Mastery is not built through judgment. It is built through feedback. That's the key. Most people end their day emotionally. They feel good. They feel bad. They feel tired. They feel behind. Feelings are useless for improvement. High performers do not judge their days. They audit them. You have a choice. Judgment sounds like this. I'm lazy. I messed up. I'm not disciplined. That language creates shame. Shame creates avoidance. Avoidance kills growth. That's the trap. Audit sounds different. What worked? What didn't? What needs adjustment? No emotion. No drama. Only data. That's the key. Daily feedback creates mastery. Not intensity. Not perfection. Small corrections, made consistently. That's how professionals improve. Here's the psychological difference. Judgment attacks identity. Feedback improves behavior. Judgment says, I am the problem. Feedback says, the system needs adjustment. One leads to paralysis. The other leads to progress. You have a choice. High performers are not harder on themselves. They are more honest. They don't lie to protect ego. They don't exaggerate failure. They look at reality. Then they refine. Let's talk about the nightly review. Not journaling feelings. Not venting frustrations. A simple audit. 5 minutes. That's all it takes. Ask 3 questions. What did I do well today? What slowed me down today? What will I adjust tomorrow? That's it. No excuses. No self-attack. Clarity. What gets reviewed gets improved. Say it. What gets reviewed gets improved. That's the key. Most people repeat the same mistakes because they never pause to examine them. They rush from one day to the next, carrying the same inefficiencies. Busy, exhausted, stuck. Review breaks that cycle. Weekly refinement matters even more. Daily reviews catch errors. Weekly reviews adjust direction. High performers zoom out. They ask bigger questions. Once a week, ask this. What moved the needle this week? What wasted time or energy? What should be eliminated next week? Ruthless honesty. No attachment. This is where discipline replaces weakness. Weakness avoids reflection. Discipline demands clarity. Weakness hides from data. Discipline studies it. It's not about the flaw, it's about discipline. That's the key. Let's address resistance. Review feels uncomfortable because it exposes patterns. Patterns don't lie. And most people would rather feel busy than confront inefficiency. But growth demands discomfort. You don't need their permission to review your life. You don't need validation. You don't need to share it. This is between you and your standards. Review creates self-trust. Because you stop guessing. You know why progress happens. You know why it stalls. That removes anxiety. Clarity calms the mind. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop replaying the day emotionally. Stop mentally beating yourself up. Stop hoping tomorrow will magically improve. Hope is not a strategy. Here's what you must start doing. Start tracking behavior, not mood. Start measuring actions, not intentions. Start adjusting systems, not identity. That's discipline. Review is not about control. It's about awareness. Awareness creates choice. And choice creates power. You have a choice. This is why elite performers improve faster. They shorten the feedback loop. They don't wait months to reflect. They course correct daily. Small corrections prevent big failures. Think of a pilot. Constant adjustments. Not dramatic turns. Tiny refinements. That's how you stay on course. That's the key. Review also builds humility. You see what works and what doesn't. You stop assuming. You start learning. Learning compounds faster than effort. Here's a critical rule. Never review without refinement. Reflection without action is indulgence. After every review, choose one adjustment. Not 10. Examples. Move workouts earlier. Remove a recurring distraction. Shorten work blocks. Eliminate a low-value habit. Small change. Immediate test. That's mastery. Repeat the cycle. Review. Refine. Repeat. That loop creates unstoppable momentum. Let me say this clearly. You don't fail because you fall off. You fail because you don't examine why. Review turns failure into instruction. That's the key. This process removes emotion from progress. You stop taking mistakes personally. You treat them as information. Information is power. Over time, something shifts. You become calm under pressure. You trust your systems. You stop panicking about productivity. Because you know, you will correct course. This is how confidence is built. Not through hype. Through evidence. Evidence that you can observe, adjust, and improve. High performers don't chase perfection. They chase refinement. Perfection freezes. Refinement evolves. Choose evolution. Let this lock in. What gets reviewed gets improved. Say it again. What gets reviewed gets improved. You've learned how to work. You've learned how to rest. You've learned how to design your environment. Now you've learned how to adapt. This is the final discipline. Because execution without review stagnates. And review without identity never lasts. You've built the system. Now it's time to become the system. The kind of person who executes. Without drama. Without excuses. Without delay. You've learned the skills. Now you must lock them into who you are. You've mastered the process. Now it's time to master the identity. Chapter 12. Become relentlessly effective. Productivity is not a skill. It is identity. That's the key. Most people approach productivity like it's a task list. Check boxes. Do more. Push harder. And they fail. Not because they're lazy. Not because they lack motivation. Not because they are undisciplined. They fail because they are trying to act productive. Instead of becoming productive, you have a choice. Here's the truth. Actions follow identity. Behavior does not create character. Character creates behavior. You don't try to be productive. You become the person who is productive. That's the key. Think about it. Why do habits fail? Because they're external. Because they're forced. Because they're disconnected from who you see yourself as. Motivation only works until it fades. Discipline only works until the environment shifts. Identity persists. You have a choice. Being relentlessly effective means aligning every action with the person you intend to be. Not the person you feel like being. Not the person others expect you to be. The person you have decided to embody. Let's break it down. Stop seeing productivity as a list of actions. Start seeing it as a reflection of character. Ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? Who do I become when no one holds me accountable? What would this person do right now? Answer honestly. The next. Here's a principle most people ignore. You cannot manage time. You cannot extend hours. You can only manage yourself. Your energy. Your focus. Your decisions. Relentless effectiveness is self-management on steroids. Stop doing what doesn't matter. Stop reacting to everything. Stop letting distraction dictate action. Every yes that doesn't align with your identity is a theft of your potential. Every wasted minute chips away at who you are becoming. That's the key. Start doing what aligns with identity. Protect your most valuable asset, attention. Guard your focus like a fortress. Say no to the trivial. Say yes to what moves the needle. The person you become does what matters. Without hesitation. Let's talk about consistency. It's not about intensity. It's not about heroic effort. It's about alignment. Every day you show up as the person who executes. You reinforce that identity. Every day you skip it, you reinforce the old, weaker self. That's the key. Discipline becomes automatic when it is part of who you are. You don't debate whether to take the action. You don't negotiate with motivation. You do it because it's what you do. Identity is the ultimate automation. Energy management becomes easier. Focus becomes natural. Decisions shrink because your identity filters every choice. What would the relentlessly effective person do? That becomes your standard. Not a rule. Not a goal. A standard. You have a choice. Let's get specific. Stop waiting for permission. Stop hoping motivation arrives. Stop blaming the system. Start structuring your environment to reflect your identity. Start designing your day to reinforce the person you want to become. Start protecting energy, focus, and time as non-negotiable resources. This is why systems fail when they are disconnected from identity. Rules without integration are brittle. Habits without identity are temporary. Identity is the glue. Identity is the engine. Identity is the difference between trying and doing. That's the key. Repetition locks it in. Say it. You don't manage time. You manage yourself. Say it again. You don't manage time. You manage yourself. Every thought, every choice, every action, filtered through identity. High performers think differently. They do not measure productivity by hours worked. They measure it by actions aligned with identity. They do not chase motivation. They chase standards. They do not hope for energy. They generate it intentionally. They do not struggle with consistency. Consistency is automatic. Let's discuss small wins. Each one is identity reinforcement. Completing the important task first thing in the morning tells your brain, I am the person who executes. Skipping the trivial distraction tells your brain, I am in control. These are not small acts. They are identity statements. You have a choice. Stop tolerating compromise. Relentless effectiveness is zero negotiation. Not for others. Not for the easy path. Not for comfort. It is total alignment with who you have decided to be. Stop feeling guilty about saying no. Every no preserves identity. Every yes misaligned with standards erodes it. Relentless people are not rude. They are deliberate. They are precise. They are disciplined. Systems, rest, environment, review, they all matter. But without identity, they fail. Identity integrates all these principles. Identity makes execution inevitable. Identity makes discipline effortless. Think about it. Every choice you make today is a vote for the person you will become tomorrow. Every action reinforces identity. Every inaction reinforces weakness. This is the real currency of productivity. Here's what you must stop doing. Stop trying to be productive. Stop relying on fleeting motivation. Stop judging yourself based on results alone. That's superficial. That's temporary. That's weak. Here's what you must start doing. Start acting as the person who gets things done. Start making every choice a reflection of that identity. Start reinforcing it daily, intentionally, without compromise. That is relentless effectiveness. Every tool you've learned in this book serves one purpose: to make you the person who executes. Systems, focus, environment, rest, review, they are all identity scaffolding. Not the goal. The goal is you, the person you are becoming. Let's close the loop. You've conquered busyness. You've mastered focus. You've protected energy. You've designed your environment. You've rested strategically. You've reviewed and refined. Now it all comes together. Identity. The relentlessly effective person is no longer a concept. It is a reality. It is a habit. It is your life. Say it one final time. You don't manage time. You manage yourself. Every second, every action, every decision. Filtered through identity. That is the ultimate productivity secret. Your challenge is simple. Be the person who acts. Be the person who delivers. Be the person who never negotiates with mediocrity. Start today. Start now. Start relentlessly. You have a choice. That's the key. This is not a chapter. This is your standard. This is who you are becoming. Listen to this carefully. You don't need more hours. You don't need more hacks. You don't need more motivation. You need alignment. The top 1% don't rush. They don't panic. They don't chase everything. They decide. They eliminate. They execute. They protect their energy. They respect their focus. They repeat what works. And that's why they win. Starting today, stop being busy. Stop negotiating with distractions. Stop waiting to feel ready. Choose one priority. Build one system. Execute without emotion. This audiobook isn't here to inspire you. It's here to rewire you. Now close this chapter with action. Apply what you heard. Live what you learned. And become someone who gets more done in less time. Without apology. Your time is now.